Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, chapter 10, text 18, and this chapter is the opulence of the Absolute, or bhakti-yoga. Vistarin tapmano yogam vibhutim cha janardana bhuya katyaya triptirhi srinvato nasime mritam. Word for word. Vistarena, in detail. Atmana, your. Yogam, mystic power. Vibhutim, opulences. Cha, also. Janardana, O killer of the atheists. Bhuya, again. Tathya, describe. Chiptihi, satisfaction. He, certainly. Srinvata, hearing. Na asti, there is not. Me, my. Amritam, nectar. Purport and translations by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhakti-Vedanta Srila Prabhupada. O Janardana, again, please describe in detail the mystic power of your opulences. I'm never satiated in hearing about you, for the more I hear, the more I want to taste the nectar of your words. Please repeat. O Janardana, again, please describe in detail the mystic power of your opulences. I am never satiated in hearing about you, for the more I hear, the more I want to taste the nectar of your words. Purport. A similar statement was made to Sutta Goswami by the rishis at Naimisharanya, headed by Shonaka. The statement is, Vayam tu na vipripyama uttama soka vikrame yakshinvatam rasagyanam swadu swadu pade pade. One can never be satiated, even though one continuously hears the transcendental pastimes of Krishna, who is glorified by excellent prayers. Those who have entered into a transcendental relationship with Krishna relish at every step the descriptions of the pastimes of the Lord. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 1, Text 19. Thus, Arjuna is interested in hearing about Krishna, and specifically how he remains as the all-pervading Supreme Lord. Now, as far as Amritam, nectar, is concerned, any narration or statement concerning Krishna is just like nectar, and this nectar can be perceived by practical experience. Modern stories, fiction, and histories are different from the transcendental pastimes of the Lord in that one will tire of hearing mundane stories, but one never tires of hearing about Krishna. It is for this reason only that the history of the whole universe is replete with references to the pastimes of the incarnations of Godhead. The Puranas are histories of bygone ages that relate the pastimes of the various incarnations of the Lord. In this way, the reading matter remains forever fresh, despite repeated readings. So I'll just give a little brief synopsis of this chapter, the absence of the Absolute. So in the beginning of the chapter, Krishna speaks. He's the one that starts speaking in the beginning of the chapter. And he's speaking to Arjuna And we all know why he's speaking to Arjuna. So can someone tell me why he's speaking to Arjuna, this science of self-realization? Okay, so can everybody just raise a hand when they want to make an offering? Okay, he's his friend and he's a devotee. And one other very important thing. That's okay. He's non-envious. So we're all here in this material world because we're envious of Krishna. So Krishna is speaking to Arjuna because he wants this knowledge to again, be available to the common man. And we know that Arjuna is, a very pure soul, and he and Krishna have been together for a long time, but he's doing it for our sake. So we, as common people, can understand our position, but most importantly, understand Krishna's position and relationship to us. Okay? So, and then Krishna speaks up to the Chatuslokis, which are verses 8 through 11, and they're considered the nutshell verses of the Gita because they give the essence of what we need to extract from the Bhagavad-Gita, what the conclusion is. Okay? So then Arjuna, he begins speaking beginning with the 12th verse through the 18th verse. And he first acknowledges and he accepts that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He accepts in full faith with no doubt. Okay? He has a realization. He says in verse 14 that I totally accept as truth all that has been spoken to me by Krishna. And further he says that neither the demigods nor the demons can understand Krishna's personality. And then in verse 15, Arjuna further solidifies what he has understood about Krishna. So in verse 15, he says, indeed, you alone know yourself by your own internal potency, O supreme origin of all, Lord of all beings, God of gods, Lord of the universe. So in this purport, Krishna is addressed as Purushottama, the Supreme Person. Then he's addressed as Bhuta Bhavana, the father of all living beings, living entities. Then as Bhutesha, the supreme controller of everyone. Then as Deva Deva, origin of all the demigods, worshipful God of all the demigods. And then he's addressed as Jagapati, the supreme protector of everyone. So this verse establishes the truth about Krishna by Arjuna's acceptance and realization about Krishna's supremacy. So then we go into verse 18. So Arjuna is saying, "O Janardana, please describe in detail the mystic power of your opulences. I'm never satiated." So this word satiated means the feeling of having had too much. So he's saying he's never having enough of hearing about Krishna and his opulences. And so we know that Srila Prabhupada gave us all these books and all this literature so that we can hear about Krishna, so we can fill up our minds with the pastimes of Krishna. Because there are so many other mundane sounds and mundane literature and the mundane news. We know, I'm sure a lot of us know of persons, the first thing they want to do is pick up the newspaper to find out what's going on in the world. Or turn on the TV as soon as they get home from work after having, worked like dogs and hogs and asses. Then they come home and turn on the TV and want to see what's happening in the world, want to hear the news. So what is the news? It's the same news. The war, pestilence, fighting, talks of war, threats of war, so many abominable things going on in the world, and it's getting worse. And even though we're here in Vrindavan, sometimes you can see there's a lot of mundane things that are going on as well, and mundane sounds. So we need to also be eager to hear. And so there were many perfect hearers that were talked about in the Vedic literatures, in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And one reason that it was spoken was for Parikshit. Parikshit sat down to hear from Sukadeva Goswami because he was told he only had 7 days to live. He had been cursed by a Brahmana boy by the name of Shringi. Well, the story goes when Maharaj Parikshit came to a Brahmana's residence, the Brahmana was in Samadhi. He was meditating. And Maharaj Parikshit got angry because he was expecting at least some kind words or some water or some recognition that he was there. But that didn't come because the sage, he was in deep meditation. So Maharaj Parikshit put a dead snake around his neck. Then when his son came home, Shringi, saw it, he got disturbed. And so he cursed Parikshit to die in 7 days, and he was to die by the bite of a snake. And so we can see what happens if you're having opulences or mystic powers that you don't know what to do with. You misuse it. Although, in the ultimate sense, this was all Krishna's plan, in Krishna's plan. Everything, not a blade of grass moves without the sanction of Krishna. So he wanted to perfect his life by hearing, because he knew when he was going to die. Actually, we're all about to die. We just don't know when. So it means we're all about to die at any point in time. And then also several other persons. One was Mother Devahuti, who was wanting to come out of her material consciousness, her material attachments. And so she was hearing from her son Kapila Dev. And then, of course, as Prabhupada mentions in this verse, the sages of Namisranya, were also there to hear. There were persons like Sutta Goswami, Sukha Goswami, Shonaka Risi, and others. And so in this verse, in this purport, Prabhupada cites the text, which talks about how one can never be satiated, even though we continually hear about the transcendental pastimes. And so we also need to hear, with rapt attention. And this hearing purifies the heart of material contamination. So as I was saying, what is happening in this material world has always been happening. That's the nature of the material world. It's going to keep on going, whether we're here or not here. And we don't want to be here. We want to try to get out of here, Because Prabhupada says it's not a place for a gentleman or a gentlewoman. This is not a place for us to hang around in. I've heard also Prabhupada said, it's just like when you go into the bathroom. You do your business and you get out. You don't hang around, in just relaxing. I was thinking about my father, who used to take a book with him, and just sit in there. I'm like, what's up? We as devotees, we know better than that. We do our business and we just go. So this is the same how we should treat the material world. We should be really anxious to try to get to know Krishna. We won't know him in full, but in this chapter, when Arjuna was asking to hear about his opulences, as the chapter goes on, he asks, how can we remember you? How can we think about you? How can we occupy our time? So that way we can, so even this is for the common man, like we can think about the taste of water. He says, as he goes on a chapter, I'm the taste and water, There are so many things that he's saying in here about himself, about how we can remember him. And it's a really beautiful chapter, actually. So we should be anxious to hear what is Krishna doing now, and how can I know him more? How can I learn to love him? And also, I was reading in one Srimad Bhagavatam about how we should be anxious to know him, to love him, to fill up our lives with him. I'm going to read from Bhagavad-Gita 635. No, we need to hear consciously, and talks about engaging our mind in the topics of Krishna. In the index, it said this treatment, this information from Bhagavad-Gita 635 is listed as an expert treatment for the mad mind. So I'll read some of this one, 635. I don't know about anybody else's mind, but I know mine is quite mad. Quite mad. Takes a lot of strength to try to rein it in and focus on the holy name and get in the habit of reading every day. In my past experiences, reading every day is such an elevation of consciousness. It's the difference between night and day. Because actually it is practically the difference between night and day. Because when you're engaged in reading about Krishna, there can be no nescience, no darkness. That's what's at the head of the back to Godhead. Where there is Godhead, there's no nescience. So this one is about trying to curb the restless mind. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha Asamsaya Mahabaho Mano Durnigaham Chalam Abhyashena tu Kaunteya Varagyena Chagriyate. The difficulty of controlling the obstinate mind, as expressed by Arjuna, is accepted by the personality of Godhead. But at the same time, he suggests that by practice and detachment, it is possible. What is that practice? And this I'm reading for me because it's nice for me to hear it so I can remember it when I'm trying to chant. But at the same time, he suggests that by practice and detachment, it is possible. What is that practice? In the present age, no one can observe the strict rules and regulations of placing oneself in a sacred place, focusing the mind on the super soul, restraining the senses and mind, observing celibacy, remaining alone, etc. By the practice of Krishna consciousness, however, one engages in 9 types of devotional service to the Lord. And the first and foremost of such devotional engagements is hearing about Krishna. So this is what we're all doing. This is Sadhu Sangha. We're all together to hear about the glories of the Lord and to hear how we can always remember him. Okay. This is a very powerful transcendental method for purging. Purging. You know what purging is? Like, you can do it in so many ways, but it's to cleanse yourself, to get deep down and cleanse your mind, purging the mind of all misgivings. The more one hears about Krishna, the more one becomes enlightened and detached from everything that draws the mind away from Krishna. By detaching the mind from activities not devoted to the Lord, one can very easily learn vairagya. Vairagya means detachment from matter and engagement of the mind in spirit. Impersonal spiritual detachment is more difficult than attaching the mind to the activities of Krishna. Actually, I just remember seeing one video one time about no aspersions on Buddhists, but he was a Buddhist monk who was, teaching meditation. But he never explained what was the meditation. And also I remember practicing meditation, reading up on how do you meditate, looking at a flame or looking at the tip of your nose or whatever the heck, it's supposed to be. But actually we're supposed to meditate on the forms of Krishna, on his pastimes. Now we have solid how to meditate on Krishna. We have solid information how to actually meditate. Impersonal spiritual detachment is more difficult than attaching the mind to the activity of Krishna. And this is also why Srila Prabhupada gave us so much to do. There's so much to do. There's no lack of anything to do in our practice. There's no lack of activities. Whatever your interest is, if you want to, distribute books, if you want to cook, if you want to clean a garden, if you want to sweep, if you want all of it, you can do, because Prabhupada gave us. And he spent his life, he wrote 80 books, and now the books are all over the world in all languages. We see all the devotees coming here to Vrindavan from all over the world. And we can only marvel at Prabhupada and what he did at the age of 70, and what he gave us in the short 12 years of his life here on earth to help us to get out of here, to help us engage our crazy minds in the glories of Krishna, in coming to our constitutional position of servant. We're not the served, we are the servants of Krishna. It says that this is practical because by hearing about Krishna, one becomes automatically attached to the Supreme Spirit. This attachment is called Paresanubhava, spiritual satisfaction. It is just like the feeling of satisfaction a hungry man has for every morsel of food he eats. The more one eats while hungry, the more one feels satisfaction and strength. Similarly, by discharge of devotional service, one feels transcendental satisfaction as the mind becomes detached from material objectives. It is something like curing a disease by expert treatment and appropriate diet. Hearing of the transcendental activities of Lord Krishna is therefore expert treatment for the mad mind, and eating the foodstuff offered to Krishna is the appropriate diet for the suffering patient. This treatment is the process of Krishna consciousness. And I want to read something out of the Srimad Bhagavatam that I've read over and over again, and I really like it, and I like to share it with you. It's in Canto 1, Chapter 12, and it's text 6. And this whole thing that Prabhupada mentions about hunger. So I'll just read some of it. I won't read all of it, but I really, really like this analogy that he gave about the spirit soul. And about the material world. He's saying, let's see. The whole material world is full of hungry living beings. The hunger is not for good food, shelter, or sense gratification. The hunger is for the spiritual atmosphere. Due to ignorance only, they think that the world is dissatisfied because there's not sufficient food, shelter, defense, and objects of sense gratification. This is called illusion. When the living being is hungry for spiritual satisfaction, he is misrepresented by material hunger. But the foolish leaders cannot see that even the people who are most sumptuously materially satisfied are still hungry. And what is their hunger and poverty? This hunger is actually for spiritual food, spiritual shelter, spiritual defense, and spiritual sense gratification. So even those persons in this world who think they have everything, they have so many riches, they have so much riches they can't even spend it in this one lifetime, but still they're not happy. And they also need to they may have material opulence, although no one can have more than Krishna. They may have material opulence, but still they're not happy. And so they also need to get prasadam. They need to get books, no matter what they have, whether they're poor or whether they're rich. It doesn't matter. Everyone who is not attached to Krishna, not practicing Krishna consciousness, needs to get a book, get prasadam, be preached to, reached. And we as devotees, we need to reach out to everyone. And so all of these spiritual attributes, these can be obtained in the association of the Supreme Spirit, Lord Sri Krishna. And therefore, one who has them cannot be attracted by the so-called food, shelter, defense, and sense gratification of the material world, even if they are relished by the denizens of the heavenly planets. Therefore, in the Bhagavad-Gita 8:16, it is said by the Lord that even in the topmost planet of the universe, namely the Brahmaloka, where the duration of life is multiplied by millions of years by earth calculation, one cannot satisfy his hunger. Such hunger can be satisfied only when the living being is situated in immortality, which is attained in the spiritual sky, far, far above the Brahmaloka. In the association of Lord Mukunda, the Lord who awards his devotees the transcendental pleasure of liberation. So he goes on further in the last paragraph to say, now as far as Amrita nectar is concerned, any narration or statement concerning Krishna is just like nectar, and this nectar can be perceived by practical experience. So modern stories, fictions, and histories, and even in like modern education, I remember coming up in school, this whole idea of memorizing all these dates of wars and when they happened and who did what and Napoleon and this and that. It was boring. It was like, and I always think, why do I have to I had to remember because of course they're going to give you a test. But you're like, this is really stupid. Why do I have to remember all these dates? Not only that, but all that information was misinformation anyway, not just from a spiritual perspective, but even from a material perspective. No. So you have to remember the dates and when this happened and when that happened and who did what and who was famous here and who was. No. So that was not nectar. That was torture. No. So this talks about Krishna. It's nectar. It's amritam. And we should also be also anxious to hear about all of his opulences, not just his sweet pastimes, but also is his opulences and how we can constantly remember him in this material world. And we can pass this information on when we're talking to the people out there who need to hear about Krishna. I know coming up, we hear when you go into church, people say, oh, God is so great. He's so great. He's so wonderful. But they don't know how great he is. They don't know anything about him, except that they're great. They have no details. But yet, they're where they are, which is okay if they think God is great. But how is he great? What makes him great? What is he doing that makes him great? What is his personality that makes him great? He's a person. He has feelings. He has friends. Right now, we're in the Srimad Bhagavatam, and we're talking about Vamanadev. And it's so nectarian to hear about this beautiful little boy who comes to take everything away from Maharaj Bali. And he does it in such a way that's amazing. So he asks, Bali for a boon. And Bali, disregarding the orders of his spiritual master, Sukacharya, he says, no, I have to give him what he wants. And actually, Krishna, whatever Krishna does is the benefit. So he wanted to benefit his devotee, Bali Maharaj. So he asked for 3 steps of land, and Bali Maharaj was like, that's all you want? I have so much. I own the whole world. Is that all you want? Oh, that's okay. I can give that to you, but you sure that's all you want? And Ramana said, yes, that's all I want. Just see, but he took he took everything. It's a beautiful pastime. And how in the end he became the doorkeeper for Bali Maharaj. At the end, he's serving his devotee. Actually, he's always serving all of us. We're getting our food, we're getting our maintenance, we're getting sunshine, we're getting rain. We're getting so much. And all of it's going on by the order of the Lord. So we can't do without sunshine. We need it. Anytime you go to a place with no sunshine, you get depressed. because you need some sunlight. You need some sunlight. You need rain. Everything gets dry. You get dry. You know? So he's giving us constantly. He's serving us constantly. And the least we can do is just try to chant his names and worship him, offer our obeisances to him, bow our heads down to him. So we can gain the highest satisfaction by hearing and reading the transcendental literature about Krishna. And from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1 to Canto 1, Chapter 2, 17. Shinvatam swakata Krishna punya shravana kirtana hiryanta stoya bhadrani vidunoti suhrit satam. Sri Krishna, the person of Godhead, who is the Paramatma, Supersoul in everyone's heart, and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee, who has developed the urge to hear his messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. So when properly heard means submissively heard, like enthusiastically heard, and from the right source. The proper spiritual master coming down from the Pampara. So as I said before, Srila Prabhupada gave us so many ways to incorporate Krishna into our lives. So we just need to hear regularly, go to Mongol Arti, hear the Srimad Bhagavatam class, chant. And in a lot of the purports I've been reading in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Prabhupada uses the word strictly because the process works. But he says rigidly. Sometimes he says rigidly. Sometimes he says strictly. That means he's given it to us as it came to him, and we need to properly follow as it's been given to us by our spiritual master. And I've discovered that chanting in the morning is the best time, because after that it becomes a mess. You chant, but the focus and the attention is not where it should be, because in the morning is best time when it's the mode of goodness. But as the day gets on, you get into the mode of passion, then you get into the mode of ignorance. At night, you chant, but it's not the quality that is deserved by the Lord. And sometimes when I'm chanting at night, I'm thinking, no, this is really not good. I need to finish my rounds in the morning time. It's the best time. And also, I want to say that all the literature about Krishna stays fresh. It's said in Prabhupada says too that it's always fresh. It's never hackneyed. Hackneyed means okay, it's enough. It's said all the time. I don't need to hear it again. It's too much. But the transcendental pastimes of the Lord is always fresh. Actually, I was comparing it also to everything about Krishna is fresh. Everything you do for Krishna is fresh. I was reflecting on, because my experience is dressing the deities, and you may dress the deities every day for years and years, but you never get tired of it. You never get like, oh, I have to go and dress the Lord again. You never feel that way, because when you get there, it's just you just lose sense of time, and you get so much inspired by dressing the Lord. And that happens every time you get on the altar to approach the Lord and to dress him. You just get re-inspired. He re-inspired you. He enters into your, he's in your heart already, but he just manifests what he wants and how he wants it. So it's fresh. Everything about Krishna is always fresh. He's always a fresh and youthful personality. So a couple of last things I wanted to say. Um, so we know that the material problems and dilemmas of this material world, they can't be solved at the level of consciousness, in which they're generated. Only by the elevation of our consciousness, through philosophical discussion, can we gain perspective about what's happening in our lives. My experience has been when there's some really tough tests coming, some really tough tests, and you think, oh my God, I'm going to get into Maya. But you just pick up any one of the books, and Krishna can speak to you through the book. The exact problem that you're wrestling with, the answer is there, it comes. So not just having the knowledge, you can't just have the knowledge, but you have to apply the knowledge to whatever situation you're in, because the answer is there. It's in the books. The answer to whatever problems we're facing is in the book. Or you have your spiritual master, you can go through him. That's why he's there, to ask him as well. I'm dealing with this issue, I'm dealing with this problem, what do I do? How do I handle it? So we just all want to be reconnected with the beautiful reality. Before I close, I just want to, I heard this story by one of Srila Prabhupada's devotees. He said that one time Srila Prabhupada was walking on the beach with his devotees. And they were in like someplace like Hawaii or someplace where it was very beautiful. They were walking on the beach, might even have been Venice Beach. And the devotees were admiring the sunset and the water and the ocean and talking about how beautiful everything was. And then Prabhupada stopped. And then he turned and asked the devotees, what do you hear? And so nobody, they were all wondering, what did Prabhupada mean by what do you hear? So then Prabhupada, after some time when nobody was answering, Prabhupada said, let me read this. He said that the waves of the ocean makes the sound of Radha's heartbeat when she's going to meet with Krishna. So he is seeing Krishna everywhere. And so he gave us everything, all the information we need, so we can see Krishna everywhere. So I thank you, and if you have any questions, comments, corrections, and if I can't answer, someone here can answer. I don't know everything. Yes, Prabhu?
Right. You were speaking about the chanting in the morning early hours. Chanting early hours in the morning.
Yes.
If I do devotee like Haridas, he was chanting 24 hours.
Yes.
So if you meditate on Haridas and if you chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, 24 hours you chant, then it's possible that you can chant Hare Krishna not only in the morning, 24 hours, any time of the day you can chant Hare Krishna.
That's a fact, but I'm not as elevated as Haridas Thakur. I need to do mine in the morning because it's best for me. We do what's favorable for our Krishna consciousness and discard what's unfavorable. And favorable means, for me, chanting early. That's favorable.
That's correct, but if you meditate on Thakur Haridas and see that he was chanting 24 hours, and if he was
Yes.
chanting, if I can also chant 24 hours, that is good.
Yes, but I can't imitate him. I can try to follow in his footsteps, but imitation means fall down to me. I can't imitate him, I can follow. Thank you.
Not imitating, just following his instruction and how he gave the instruction that we should chant 24 hours in Krishna's name.
Yes, he did. Thank you. Anyone else?
And you were speaking that purport that Krishna is the controller of everyone.
Yes.
But where we say that in some places we said that he has given us mind independent.
Yes.
So, can you clarify the minute interference in controlling? What is the difference between what this?
Well, Krishna cannot force us to love him. He wants our love. So if you're, like with someone and you're trying to force them, you can't force anyone to love you. Because forced love is no love. So Krishna, out of his kindness, has given us free will. You can choose me or not choose me. It's up to you. Do you want me or you don't? If you don't, I can arrange that you do whatever you want. I'll make the arrangements. Whatever you want to do, you can do. But to come willingly, to say, Krishna, I'm all yours. I come willingly. So we can choose, yes. He's given us that,
But then what is the meaning of controlling? He is the controller. What is the meaning of it?
He's actually controlling everyone. He's controlling the demigods. He's controlling the world. You can just read in all the literatures. He's the controller of everything. Time is gone. He's the controller of time. He's the controller of the ocean. He's the controller of everything. That's what I interpret as controller. Anyone else have an opinion about controller? Can you give them the mic? Oh, you have a different thing. Anyone about the issue of controller? Okay, go ahead, Prabhu, please.
First of all, I want to thank you for your so nice class. I just came from Delhi yesterday night. I thought I'll just share with all of you. I saw yesterday in the ISKCON temple the world's largest Bhagavad-Gita by Prabhupada.
Yes.
It is so attractive.
Mm.
So I thought anybody can come and see.
Where is it, in Delhi? In Delhi?
In New Delhi.
Uh-huh.
Delhi now has many temples.
Which temple?
One at east of Kailash.
Oh,
Sri Radha Parsati Mandir.
okay.
And structure has got gold covering, handcrafted, and it's about 2,000 kilograms span. Really, it's called Astounding Bhagavad Gita.
Oh,
Or Astounding Gita.
okay. Thank you for that information. If I ever get to New Delhi, if I ever leave Vrindavan. Anyone else? Questions, comments, corrections, chastisements? Anything? Thank you so much. Okay, Hare Krishna devotees, thank you for coming.